Good evening,
Hello.
everyone, and welcome. It's Bec and Deb here, and welcome to our TV show, Dare to Be You TV show. It's great to have you with us again this week. And as always, we like to let you know what we've got going on, what you can join in with, because we'd hate for you to miss out. And there's always something wonderful going on.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to tell you a little bit about our 30 Days of Self-Love. So this is a program we put together, I think maybe about 4 or 5 weeks ago. And had a whole group of people joining in, and it's an amazingly beautiful program, and it's available on our website. And every day for 30 days you get a little email from us with a short video, just bringing you back to kind of that innate resilience and well-being that is you, that self-love that we talk about.
Being reminded who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do that by kind of talking about the 9 puzzle pieces of self-love, one of which we're actually going to talk about today as our topic, our spiritual nature. And it's just a beautiful kind of way of kind of inviting yourself each day to just be nourished and reminded about who you are as a human and who you are as a spiritual essence and how they work together. And to just be more mindful of your nature and your innate self-love. So it would be great if you wanted to join in with that. And as a part of that, you actually get a short one-to-one with one of us, and that comes as part of that program.
Yeah, we've been doing some of those over the last few
days. They've been really nice,
amazing conversations with patients.
So if you want to know more about that, you can go to our website, daretobeyou.co.uk, and we'd love to have you join us for 30 days of amazing conversation.
And the other thing that we just wanted to tell you about was this book, the Dare to Be You book. So we've not long, about a week, just over a week ago, we finished doing book club. And I'll make a little confession here. When Bec suggested, well, a couple of people had talked about a book club, and we thought both Bec and I absolutely love books. So we decided we would do a book club. We decided it would be fun. And we were looking at kind of trying to decide what book to use. And Bec said, why don't we use the Dare to Be You book, your book, the one you wrote. And I had this, oh no, it's probably terrible. I don't really know. It's been a while since I've read it. It's probably awful. I smiled and said, yeah, great idea. And then we actually did book club, and I was pleasantly surprised. We read the book and we joined in. So we read the book alongside everybody else. And we were actually having a few conversations about it. And I said, oh, that book's not bad.
It's really good.
So we just wanted to remind you, if you haven't got the Dare to Be You book, what is it, £10 I think on?
I think, yeah, it's about that. So you can either get it on Amazon, or we have actually got a small amount of copies here in our office.
If you'd like a signed copy, just drop a comment wherever you're watching this, and we can have a conversation and sort that out. We can do that. So
yeah, it's well worth it.
It's not a bad book.
Yeah, it's really good. She's being modest.
She doesn't really do modest.
It's really good. So, yeah, it's a great way to be, again, a bit like the 30 days. It's a really good way, because each of the chapters is actually really quite short and sweet, but kind of packs a punch. And it just, each day you can kind of pick it up and be in this conversation. So it's a great way to do that. So go and have a look either on Amazon, or like Deb said, let us know and she can sign it with a purple pen. She signs everything in purple.
I do. Purple is my colour, and the reason that purple is my colour, and the reason that I use a purple heart a lot, how that actually started was when I started on my journey and I was really lost. It took a lot of courage and bravery to do some of the things that I had to do to get where I am today. And so everything we do, Dare to Be You, it has a purple heart on it, because a purple heart was a sign of courage. I just read that somewhere, and I really loved that and made the purple heart my own as courage. So the purple heart is for courage to all of us.
Yeah. Fabulous. So on with the show. Our question this week is, I'm okay, but what about others? And I know yesterday Deb and I had the absolute joy and pleasure of going to Exeter College and talking to 2 groups of students. It's obviously very early on in their college year, and with everything that's kind of happened this year, a particularly interesting year to be going back into college. So we went in to talk about kind of resilience and that sort of thing. And we had a really, really great time. We had a fantastic time, didn't we? And it was really good fun.
If anyone is watching this, if anyone signed up to our YouTube show and they are watching this,
we had a fabulous time.
We did.
The second group that we kind of got to work with we're a group of people that are doing kind of health and social care studies, and that sort of arena of going out in the world at some point and looking out for other people in some way. You know, they'll come across once they've got their degree and they go out for jobs. Their jobs are likely to include things where they go out and meet other human beings in some way in distress or troubles or difficulties. And that, I know a lot of people that work in that arena can feel very drained by that, and very much like, I'm okay, but then I kind of work with other people and they're not. So what about other people? You know, what about others? So it was really nice yesterday, because the two groups we were working with, they didn't know anything about what we shared yet. So we got to have some really beautiful, amazing introductory
the whole
conversations.
Group of newbies. That was really, really lovely.
But definitely kind of what we see around that I'm okay, but what about others, is how much we can pendulum swing with that. How much as a human being we can turn up sometimes from a place of almost, well, screw you, I'm okay, I'm not interested in whether you are or not. Or we can turn up from that space of almost caring too much. And that for me, I think, happens a lot with people in that kind of arena: health, social care, nurses, doctors, people in that field of that kind of caring profession, care workers, those kinds of things. They almost care too much to the kind of state where they end up burning themselves out, or taking on too much and being overwhelmed, pressured, stressed, feeling it kind of everywhere, you know, not being able to sleep at night, those kinds of things. And it's a pendulum, isn't it? Like, we talk about the pendulum quite a lot.
We do.
It works
being
so well.
in a place of balance.
And it is seeing that, you know, that caring almost too much and taking on everyone else's stuff, versus kind of, screw you, I'm okay and I don't care about you. Neither one of those places is healthy. So we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that actual, like Deb said, the place of balance, that actually I'm okay and so is everybody else, like kind of switching that question up a bit.
Yeah. And what I know, the question actually came about from somebody who is in a relationship, and they have, and this is very often when this question comes up, they've come across this understanding and they've had a few insights, and they've got into a place where they are beginning to see who they truly are. They're beginning to see things about themselves. And then it's kind of, but these other people don't know that. So what do I do about that? Because if someone else doesn't know that, if I have this understanding but someone else doesn't know that, what am I supposed to do then? And that was like when you're pointing to in care work and in that. I think it's incredibly helpful, if you are in the caring profession, to know that you have you have a connection to the essence of this universe, the energy behind this universe. And I know sometimes we talk about that as taking responsibility whilst knowing you're not responsible. And that's been a game changer for me, showing up for people from a place of knowing that I'm innately okay. There is something about me that cannot be damaged, cannot be changed. And when I connect to that, no matter what is going on in my body, and no matter what is going on in the world, and no matter how stressful stuff looks, when I know that that is what is at my core, and I connect with that, I'm okay. But then it can be, but other people don't know that. And what am I supposed to do? You know, I know that about me, but they don't know that about themselves, and they don't know that about me. So what do I do about that? And that to me is looking back to what it is we're pointing to, looking back to that truth. So if what we are sharing here, and what we are always inviting you to do, is to see that for yourself, you know, play with it yourself, go out in the world, do whatever you do and play with this and look. So what we're saying here, what we're sharing here is that, you are a human being. You do go, you know, you might be a care worker, you might be at college, you might be in a relationship, you might, you know, all sorts of, everything that we do when we're human, you'll tick all sorts of boxes on that. All of those things will be happening for you. You are that. But to be human, the place where being human comes from is, there's something about you that is before that being human comes from, something deeper at your core, who you are beyond being human. There's something more to you than just that. And that place, that's like your inner diamond, or your core, your space within, whatever you want to call it, whatever it makes sense to you, the spark within you. All of us have got that at our core. That's where all of this comes from. And that place can't be damaged, can't be changed, can't be broken. Nothing can ever happen to that part of us. And we can always reconnect with that. You know, when we're in our normal human, looking after a crying baby, dealing with our partner cheating on us or leaving us, or dealing with losing our job, or dealing with going back to college after coronavirus, or anything that we deal with, that place within us is where our resilience that we were talking about yesterday,
that's where it resides.
That's where it comes from. It is a bottomless well of everything we need to be everything we are out in the world.
And I think we can kind of I think then sometimes when we've seen that, we can kind of misunderstand that when we then go out into the world, and when we're faced with somebody else, we can kind of almost trip ourselves up into, well, if I know I'm okay, I don't need to take on your worries, so screw you, you're on your own, you're okay, it's fine. And something about the feeling that comes with when, you know, if I'm looking at something, well, you're okay, I don't need to worry about you. The feeling that comes with, and even, you know, the tone in which I'm saying it and the body language and everything indicates to me that I've missed something. That okayness, that innate resilience, that inner diamond that we are, would never kind of respond like that to someone when we're truly seeing that. If we're having a moment where it's more screw you, then we've forgotten the inner diamond. We've moved away from it. You know, on that pendulum swing, we've kind of gone over here a little bit.
Sounds to me like we've gone into fear. Like we think someone can take that from us if we get involved in their stuff. Yeah,
you're not to take that away from me. So I've stepped more into push that person away a little bit. And equally, when we go into that space of caring so much that we're burning ourselves out, taking on so much that our shoulders hurt, our body and our mind are very good at giving us alarms when we've stepped either side of that place of balance where we see that we are that inner diamond is just comfortable and easy and light. And when we've stepped either side of that, you know, if we've gone into, well, screw you, you're not taking my okayness away, I'm not taking on your stuff, versus taking it all on. I'm an inner diamond, so I can take on the whole world's problems on my shoulders. We get an alarm in some way that tells us when we've moved either side of that, when we've moved out of that place of balance. And it can come, you know, for everyone that will be slightly different. You know, I know for me personally, it's in my shoulders. I feel the burden in my shoulders, or I feel it in my body when I'm being that fear place, when I'm pushing someone away because I'm a little bit afraid that they might take my okayness away. And either side of that, I get some kind of alarm, something that notifies me, you're out of balance here. You've forgotten that diamond. You've taken that and almost made it mean something it doesn't. And it's coming back to seeing that shiny, always okay space that lives within us. And from there, what we can do is take on stuff from other people in a way that doesn't burden us, in a way that's just helpful and giving and caring, from, like Deb was saying, that kind of bottomless well. And we don't kind of feel like screw you, and we don't feel overburdened. We just sit in this incredible place in the middle where we turn up and do what's right for us and for the other person. And I just think that is so incredibly helpful if you're in an arena where you're working with other people. And just like Deb was saying, somebody that's just in a relationship and struggling at times and feels like they have to push that other person away, or feels like they have to take that other person's stuff on until they're crippled under the weight. And we don't have to do either. We can come back.
And if we come back to that knowing ourselves, knowing, you know, looking at that and finding our own inner diamond, finding that place within us, if we know that about ourselves, the only thing we ever have to do is remember that. And that keeps us out of the screw you, and keeps us out of the getting overburdened with other people's stuff. Because when we are in those places and it thinks, yeah, I'm okay, but this other person doesn't know it, so this isn't going to go well because they don't know that. You know, I do, but they don't. our knowing of that keeps us in our grounding, and we have like an inner sat nav, and we get little messages that tell us how to share, that tell us what to do in those moments. And the only person that ever needs to know this is you. And if you are in a situation where you're invited to point this out to someone else, you know, to point them to their own inner diamond, to say that you have this too, then great, that's brilliant. But you don't have to force that onto someone else. You don't have to share that with someone else. Your deep knowing of that is always enough, because that's just how this system works, and you can rely on this system 100%. The only person, if it's difficult to share it with someone else, if someone that you are either working with or in a relationship with, or for whatever reason you're with, if they don't know it, that whole I'm okay, but what about the fact that they don't know it? If they don't know it, then it doesn't matter. The only person that has to know this is you. And if you come back to knowing this more deeply yourself, because the very fact that you're in a place of, I know this, but they need to know this, says there's something more for you to see. Because the more you know this, the more you'll see that it's fine. And not a screw you, it's fine. Or it's just fine if other people know it or not. And you're knowing of this, if you're the one watching this, if you're the one listening to this, and you feel like, oh, there's someone else in my life who should, from a beautiful place of shame, absolutely. But more than anything, keep bringing this back to you and seeing what it is you can see more deeply, because that's the biggest gift you can give other people, because you will show up completely differently when you deeply, truly know this about yourself.
So our topic this week is our spiritual nature. And as I kind of alluded at the beginning, this is one of the, for us, this is one of the puzzle pieces that brings us to self-love, that brings us to that place where we can truly be ourselves out in the world. This is kind of, for me, this was always, I grew up in a church community, and we talked about God, and we talked about kind of the all-knowing, all-powerful God. And I kind of had one concept of that as a youngster. But then as I kind of came into this understanding and sharing what we share, I saw that in a whole new light and a whole new level. Like, we turn up and get to be human beings, you know, and as human beings, we have all sorts of amazing ideas, preferences, likes, dislikes, relationships, jobs, homes, cars, all of the fun stuff that you get to have as a human being. And our spiritual nature, for me, is the thing that sits behind all that. It's the thing, and I know Deb's already talked a fair bit in that. It often happens that as we talk about a question, it kind of tips over into the topic. They're so neatly interlinked. And it is seeing that the space in which all of this humanness arises is a kind of spiritual energy or essence that you really can't quite put words on. But it's something that, if we stop and look for just a minute, we already know this. As part of the conversation we were having yesterday with one of the groups, someone kind of asked us the question. We were talking about thought and how we have thoughts and thinking in our head. And someone asked the question, well, where did those thoughts come from? And in some ways, we can't even really answer that. You know, they just land in our head, seemingly out of nowhere.
We're being thought.
It just kind of comes out of, almost out, it seems to be out of the blue. And Deb kind of started answering the question, and then kind of came around and said, what we're really pointing to here is something spiritual about ourselves. And the girl kind of smiled and said, I thought you might say something like that. And then the girl next to her kind of then shared and said, I feel like this is something we already know, isn't it? And it is, it's that, what we are pointing to here, that spiritual nature.
Because it is you, isn't it? It is us. It is who we are.
It's something that we know. It's something that it's so ordinary and everyday. And there'll be an experience in your life that if you stop for a minute and reflect back, you'd be like, it's that, isn't it? I knew it then. I had a moment of recognizing that about me then. And that kind of, there's almost no more words for it. And yet, we find a way to talk about this and point to it, don't we? Because it is something we know.
It is beyond words. So we use metaphors, don't we? And we say it's like this, but it's not quite this.
Yeah.
And to me, it feels like being human is, it happens through a system or a framework or whatever, and that system, that framework, that's our spiritual nature. That's that part, and that's the bit that's like every single one of us operates on the same operating system, this framework. That's the place where we are all the same, where this arises, and there's only one of those. So there is only one spiritual nature that belongs to all of us. It's a place where we are one, where we're all joined, where we come together, and then our humanness gives us an experience of separation. But knowing that it arises from our spiritual nature, we can only do our best to put words on something that is way beyond the words, and trust that somewhere in you get it, because that's what happens when we come together. We're kind of like, yeah, and then someone else might use a slightly different metaphor and say something different, and you're like, yeah, because it's kind of like that but not exactly that. And there's not anyone on this planet the most profound, deep, Buddha or nobody can actually put words on it that everyone that makes sense to absolutely everyone, and that we all get. Because we all have, as a human being, we get to have a personal experience of our spiritual nature, and we put our own spin on it. It makes sense to us in our own way. And yet, if we can look to what the words are pointing towards, look to what it is we're trying to allude to here, and it shows up in all sorts of ways within us. Like we have an inner knowing, we have an inner sat nav, I know I like to think of it as, but you might call that intuition, a gut feeling. I just knew we all have experiences of that at times, and we all have experiences of doing things in life, and we disappear somehow. Often people who play music or people who play sports can say about that experience, but I think you can have that experience washing up, or looking after your baby, or hoovering. You can have it anywhere. The human you disappears, and it's whatever it is that's happening is happening through you. It's like, I didn't do that, it got done. That's our spiritual nature. That's the place where that's the gift that we have, and all of this arises from it. It's mind-blowingly, amazingly beautiful.
We got invited to speak at the college yesterday on the topic building resilience, and so we kind of we went in and we started kind of from that place of what is resilience, and what do we mean by building it, and very quickly got into the conversation of, we don't need to build resilience because we already are resilient. That kind of endless bottomless well that we talked about in the question, we have a bottomless well of resilience. And I think for me, sometimes we can talk about our spiritual nature, or we can say those words and they sound very out there, disconnected, not something, I'm not spiritual, I'm just a human being getting on with my life. And then we can talk about it like as resilience, and that becomes a little bit more maybe understandable as a starting point. I can kind of grasp what resilience might be. We asked both groups what they thought it was, and we had some really great answers.
We did.
But the one that stuck out for me was actually the very first person that spoke, and they said inner strength.
Yeah.
And I loved that because she started with the word inner, and really our spiritual nature is as ordinary as knowing that we have inner strength. It's as ordinary as seeing that resilience that comes through us. At the end of the second session, the tutor, he asked the group a question: how many of you feel as though you have seen your resilience in the 2 years you've already been in college? And amusingly, half the group put their hands up, and they were on one side of the room, and the other side of the room, none of them put their hand up. It's an aside. I don't feel like there's anything, but it was amusing that one half, and they were all on the same side of the room, all said, yeah, I've seen some resilience in myself in the last 2 years of college, and some of them hadn't. But I suspect if we'd had the time, or if he was kind of asking that question, if we'd have pushed a little bit, they absolutely could have found a time when they'd seen that in themselves, because we are consistently resilient. Like there's I think it was from maybe the 80s or something, a toy called a Weeble.
Oh yeah.
Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. That's resilience. As human beings, we wobble, but we will never
get pushed over by life
down.
Sometimes, but we just keep
we won't ever break in that way.
Mm.
And that, you know, that ordinariness is really what we're talking about. And you'll have a moment, if you sat and reflected for a minute, you'll have probably more moments that you can actually count. If you know, a bit like when you go out at night and look at the stars, for a minute there's no stars there, and then suddenly they start appearing, don't they, as your eyes adjust. And I think we can do that with resilience. We can start to go, I don't think I've ever, oh yeah, there was that one time I was resilient. Oh, then there's that, and then all of a sudden they're, you know, lighting up your sky. And it's that we're pointing to, that we can be that kind of resilient. We can have that inner strength. That's what our spiritual nature is.
Absolutely.
That's it. It's as ordinary and everyday as that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes when these conversations and we put words on things and it feels like we're looking for something, like you say, that's, I know, like both of us grew up in a church community, and my experience of that was church was over here and life was over here. And I think sometimes we can do that with things like our spiritual nature. We can think, well, when I'm meditating or when I am doing something about my spiritual nature, I have it, and when I'm not, I don't. But it underpins everything all the while. And a little bit like resilience, it's just there, and we have it in bucket loads. We have exactly the amount that we need. We don't have more than we need, and we never have less than we need. It's just there. And our spiritual nature is it is the resilience. They are one and the same. It's just a way of speaking about it. And it just underpins everything. And the minute you need it, it's there. And when we're being really human and out in the world and we don't need to see it, still there.
Yeah, like the stars are still there.
Absolutely.
We just don't notice it until it gets darker.
The sun and the moon and the stars, they're just there. And resilience it's yours, and there's nothing you have to do to deserve it, to grow it, to build it, to make it be more. It's part of your makeup. And if you ever need that bounce back ability, it's totally there. And the only thing that can give you an experience of not having resilience is the thinking that you have in the moment that you believe to be true.
So what are we doing next week? So next week we're going to talk on the topic of balance, which is another one of our self-love puzzle pieces, and brings together what we talked about in our show last week, which was being human, and what we've just touched on, our spiritual nature, brings those two together.
And our question next week is, how can I ignore my anxiety when it is through the roof? Because very often if we have this conversation with people, they're going, yeah, but my anxiety, it's through the roof today. There's nothing I can do. So we're just going to have a little chat around that and see what we've seen in that arena. So we would love you to join us then. And I'm sure we'll be doing things in between. So please join in anything. We're everywhere.
We certainly are. And tomorrow, being Thursday, is challenge day, so join us in the group. We'll be setting you a little challenge. It's just a fun invitation to just have a look a bit more deeply into what we're sharing, and we give you a fun way of doing that. So join us for challenge day, and hopefully we will see you somewhere soon.
Take care and speak to you soon. Bye.